Hello, everyone. I'm Aisha Khan, and welcome to our webinar on accelerating digital transformation through product engineering and low code. Manish, if you could go over to the next slide, we can do a quick overview of what we will be covering today. So we're going to be starting off the discussion on high-level conversation around digital transformation, the what, why, and how, followed by the deep dive into product engineering. Mike will then walk us through the low-code platform, and we'll be having a sidebar conversation on metrics and KPIs. And I would like everyone to keep their questions handy as we will do a 10 to 15-minute Q&A at the end. Now, we're going to be going through a lot of information, so if we don't get through everything and you're not able to keep up, don't worry, you're going to be getting a recording of this webinar after we're done. So a few introductions as people filter in here. So today you're going to be hearing from Manish Gulati. Manish is the Director of IT, PMO, and Evangelism at TechBlocks. He's got a wealth of techno-functional and industry knowledge with over 18 years of experience under his belt. And Mike Hughes, Mike is a self-proclaimed IT Renaissance man. He's culminated his many years of experience in product development into providing tremendous value for customers using low code. Now, the two organizations that are going to be hosting this webinar today are TechBlocks. TechBlocks is a global IT company based out of Toronto. We have Fortune 500 and Fortune 5 clients across the world, and we provide agile and flexible delivery and are a chosen partner for OutSystems in North America. Now, what do we actually do? A closer look. We enable companies to really evolve their digital transformation practice by building solutions in modern web, mobile, and IoT. We allow companies to mature their digital initiatives through BI analytics and cloud, and optimize digital transformation through building solutions that are leveraging some of the new emerging technologies. Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you to do a quick introduction into OutSystems.
Thank you, Aisha. Yeah, and thank you for using the soft filter photo of me. It makes me look younger. That's wonderful. Thank you. Very considerate. So OutSystems, we've been around a long time. We're kind of like BMW. We only do one thing. We have a low-code platform, and we've been doing this for over 18 years now. And in that time, we've grown substantially. We have a global footprint, present now in over 50 countries, representing 22 or more different industries. So we've been in this space a long time, and the space is super hot right now. If you go out and look at kind of what the analysts say about this space, Forrester coined the term low code back in 2014. You know, they've had a number of different reports. We're a leader in two of their most significant reports, low code app dev platforms for application development professionals and mobile app low-code platforms. Gartner, they're starting to use the low-code term, but if you're looking at the magic quadrants where you would find low-code, mobile application development platforms is one of those. We're a leader there, and high productivity application platform as a service, trips off the tongue, is another magic quadrant that's relevant. So for those who are interested in the space, check out those reports to learn about the different vendors. It's a crowded space now, over 100 different vendors kind of claiming the low-code moniker now. But not all low-code vendors are created equal, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about how we're different as we go through. Very established community of professionals out there. This number's old. It's actually over 200,000 now, developers within kind of the OutSystems community. So very vibrant, and a great partner ecosystem as well, as obviously we see today. So very excited to have TechBlocks as a partner and be supporting you today on this webinar. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. That was a very colorful introduction. And now I'm going to hand it over to Manish to deep dive and get the session started.
Thank you, Aisha. And once again, thank you all for joining this webinar today. In my opinion, digital transformation is an overused phrase these days. So one can easily go online and there are thousands, if not millions of articles talking about what digital transformation is. and statistics around why it is important and why organizations need to go through it to survive in the marketplace for next few years. Our intent of this webinar is not to go over why it is important and to convince you about it by showing statistics around it. Rather, we go with an assumption that the reason you are here today is because to some extent you are convinced that the digital transformation is a necessary disruption in the industry. In next 30 minutes or so, we will primarily focus on why to embrace it, challenges you might face in your digital transformation journey, and how to successfully execute a digital transformation initiative. We will go into details of how the best practices from product development methodologies and use of the latest low-code platforms can help you deliver a successful digital transformation initiative. Technology has pretty much changed the pace of development in the industry in the last 15, 20, 25 years. The latest advances in tools and platforms and methodologies in cloud, BI, machine learning, digital assistants, for example, have reduced the barriers to entry for startups into well-established industries. Some of the known examples that have been much spoken about are Airbnb, Uber. I'm not going to go into details of those examples, but the fact is a lot of established organizations are struggling to come up with and implement new ideas at a much faster pace and low cost to compete with digital savvy competitors or startups out there. A well-thought, planned, and executed digital transformation initiative will help the organizations not only to reinvent itself to be relevant, but also to transform its core operations in the business value chain to help derive new sources of revenue, for example. Reinventing customer experiences and digital interactions by integrating product engineering best practices helps organizations get closer to their end customers, to their end customers' need, and build feedback loops and bring in feedback at a much earlier stage in the product development lifecycle so as to reduce the cost further on. For example, many organizations today pay a lot of attention to their net promoter score for customer satisfaction, as it affects their brands and helps them gain or lose competitive advantage in the marketplace. So it is necessary for organizations to embark on digital journey. However, it is easier said than done, as there are many challenges and roadblocks the leaders face at different levels and should be prepared to handle. To begin with, for example, leaders in organizations from business and IT usually do not have a common understanding and vision of what digital transformation means for their organization and why is it even necessary. The definition, in my opinion, should be put in company's vision statement and shared by the senior leaderships with the rest of the team as goals and objectives to be met so that everyone is on the same page in the organization with respect to the transformation. The common understanding and definition should also be clearly defined, and it should have touch points of digital journey within and outside of the organization and how it impacts internal and external stakeholders such as customers. One of the challenges leaders face is to build a business case and to justify investment in transformation. And many times it stems from the distinction between whether it is a necessary transformation or a transition, which we are going to talk in the next slide. In my conversations with IT leaders of mid to large enterprises, I have seen commonalities in challenges they face in keeping their business happy. Some of the common issues I have heard are around business just want us to release more applications each year faster with low cost and a great user experience and being agile at the same time. Well, I ask, how is that even remotely possible if you do not have a strong product management practice, skills, and delivery capabilities and right platform in place? So we are going to touch upon some of these areas in presentation today. Not only industry leaders are today struggling to meet business demands, they are also at a critical juncture where they are in need to replace and modernize existing applications with inflexible technology stacks and legacy debt. So how to address those issues is something we are going to look in some of the further slides. But before we go into how about digital transformation is not a project or a technology. I just want to say that It is not about just modernizing applications or making things faster. It is a process of digital technologies to focus your operations on addressing customer pain points. And it starts with your core operations of the organization. That's a key thing to keep in mind. There is a popular saying by Rupert Murdoch, I believe it goes like, it is no longer the big beating the small, but the fast beating the slow. Well, to some extent, that is true for digital transformation, as the speed and agility are required to be successful. However, we need to be careful about the kind of projects and the direction we are taking as well, because it is not about changing the way we build applications. It is about changing the fundamental way the business operates. And to do it in the right way, we have been following a very simple approach of 3 steps. Have a strategy in place, or build one that is focused on customer experience and digital journey. Also have a focus on user experience and design to make that journey intuitive and easy to follow, and to leverage best practices or make best use of the technology out there to deliver high quality product with faster go-to-market. Strategy, design, technology. Sounds simple, but we are going to go in deep dive into how to implement those 3 things. In the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about building blocks of successful digital transformation that involves all the 3 components that we just talked about. So the question is how to go about digital transformation then. Based on our experience at TechBlocks and OutSystems, we know product engineering mindset combined with low-code platform significantly increases chances of successful digital transformation. We have helped organizations with successful implementations by focusing on 4 basic building blocks of digital transformation: envision, build, launch, and evolve. It is important to understand the distinction between a project and a product. Project starts and ends. Products continuously evolve. Most of the IT applications and systems these days continuously evolve to meet evolving business needs. So it is important, first of all, to bring a product management mentality in-house. This means building the right team structure in place. It is equally important to envision the digital transformation roadmap and define how it impacts core operations of the organization and the digital journey of the customer. We are going to talk more about how to define user experience and journey in upcoming slides, as this is a crucial step in implementation. For example, it might change the way customers interact with service techs within your organization. For example, in utilities and telecom industry, a customer might talk to a digital assistant to find last month's bill amount, change service, or even pay bill in advance without ever calling the call center, reducing cost of operations for the company while improving experience for the customer not having to wait on phone. So once basically the starting point in Envision is to define a roadmap and implementation plan, but once that is done and we are ready to execute, it becomes even more important that the right platforms, right DevOps practices, quality assurance practices are put in place to address business demands of more and faster releases, quicker go-to-market. At the same time, it is equally important to have project governance in place to keep all stakeholders involved and accountable. It is hard to imagine, but most of the digital transformations initiatives do not fail at envision or build stage. When, usually the optimism is in the product is usually high in the earlier stages, the real challenge comes when it is time to launch a meticulously planned initiative, and it requires launching the product. It requires change management around it, example, training staff. It requires business readiness for the way customers are going to interact. And most important, how to handle feedback and analytics that's going to come back with the product launch. How to take that feedback and funnel into enhancement roadmaps for the product. Organizations and products don't stand in silos these days. There is an ecosystem built around services and products to serve customers. It might mean integrating with other systems, organizations, and building a digital ecosystem around your products to be successful. There are many successful examples in the market like Jira from Atlassian, Salesforce, that have built strong ecosystems and marketplaces, which is partially responsible for their success as well. So at this time, Mike, I would like to, if you can talk a little bit more about OutSystems and how the low-code platform helps with the transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. So low code, again, not all low code platforms are created equal. So I'm kind of speaking a little bit about OutSystems as I speak to these bullets here. But in general, the goal of low code is to make it easier and faster to build software. And that's enabled by having a visual approach to development, right? It's kind of an assembly process like Legos. You take the building blocks and you assemble them in the right way to meet the needs, to meet your requirements. Full stack in the case of OutSystems, which means that you can create all the layers of your application. I'll get into a bit more detail on that later on. And that's significant because not all tools in the low-code space address the full stacks. Some are much more focused on business process. Some are much more focused on just mobile. Some are focused on perhaps just the front end, right? So in the case of OutSystems, it's full stack. You can create complicated, sophisticated applications that literally run the business. Being able to deploy to any device is important. Of course, mobile, web, but beyond that, right? Bots, chat interfaces, right? Different types of interactions, right? That we now expect as consumers and employees, right? Are commonplace. So abstracting away that complexity with low code means that we make it easier and faster to do that as well. Full life cycle. So typically low code platforms then allow the full design creation, testing, deployment of applications that are visualized using the platform, right? So full life cycle, and again, making that easy and fast. And then the last bullet here, enterprise grade. So this is important. Some people lump low code kind of into the old case tools perhaps of many decades ago. Technology has evolved significantly. There are organizations running their business using OutSystems as kind of the backbone, right? So these systems have proven themselves, and you can expect that they will meet your needs, right, when it comes to very large scale enterprise grade deployments. So if low code's making this all easier and faster, right, the question might be, well, why do we need a partner, right? So the technology is one piece of the puzzle, and we'll see that more as Manish goes through the slides, right? You need the expertise to be able to know what to build to begin with, the engineering practices, which is the focus of today's discussion, to be successful, right, to actually build the right types of system. So just because you can build fast doesn't mean you're necessarily building the right things. So partners, are a hugely important part of our ecosystem for organizations that need help getting to market much faster, right? Partners bring that expertise and the engineering practices as well to make sure that the projects are successful. So I'll jump a bit more into the detail of how OutSystems specifically works a little bit later on, but let's kind of look a little bit at the engineering practices themselves.
Thank you, Mike, for beautifully putting it. It is important to build faster, but it is also important to have engineering practices in place so you're building the right thing. So with that, I'll just go a little bit deep dive into how we can use product engineering practices or mindset to have a great user experience and build products successfully. Before we jump into the product engineering practices, it is also important to know that there's a team that is required to basically build a product, and it is important to have a quick glance into what that power team looks like. For any product company or for any company that is trying to build a digital product, usually if they are coming from a business side, it's easier to think that yes, we have developers, yes, we have testers, and we can start building products, or we add a Scrum Master and we are good to go. Usually it doesn't work that way. You have to have practices around user experience and product strategy. You have to have a proper PMO and a governance in place. You have to have architecture and product engineering, including DevOps practices, agile practices, processes built into place so that products can be developed and managed throughout their life cycle, and a strong quality assurance, not just a QA software testing, but a quality assurance around product is required. And finally, once a product is out, it's not going to just stop there. Everything around monitoring, maintaining that product, evolving, a team for supporting that is required. Just a consideration in mind before we actually start going into building products. So how do we actually go about building a product from an idea to a successful launch? We have successfully launched products or have done digital transformation using a simple three-stage approach. And with a mindset of delivering products, it has served us well with many, many organizations and their IT initiatives. We start with research and strategy, where we define the vision, we define the roadmap, implementation plan, followed by a strong DevOps practice, which focuses more on how to actually build that product, how to execute the plan that was defined in the previous stage, and how to launch that product in the market, including training and whatever is required in change management to launch it, followed by how to manage it on an ongoing basis, how to measure the success of product, how to measure KPIs and tie it back to what was originally planned for, how to get analytics, and how to optimize or continuously evolve the product on a regular basis. So with 3 stages in mind on research and strategy, DevOps, and measure and optimize, we are just going to go a little bit deep dive into each one of them and look what individual practices or steps can be followed under each so that a product lifecycle is managed in a better fashion, and you can churn out products faster and better. So going into research and strategy, during the discovery sessions, it is important to bring business and IT in the same room. Also, if possible, to bring end users, like your customers, in the same room to start with the ideation and brainstorming sessions. It's very crucial to define the vision and goals of transformation or the product itself. Now, some organizations already have a product that they're trying to transform. Others have way advanced requirements, and some are just starting. So each organization is different, and accordingly, the processes have to be different. But it is important that there's a common understanding between business, IT, and the end users of the product, how it is going to be used, how it is going to transform their way they do work, and how it is going to bring results to them. One may decide to build mind maps. There are so many different kind of techniques during this stage, or run high-level ROM estimates to do ROI justifications, or define high-level user digital journeys, or run it by end users to see the impact on their operations. The objective here is to have enough confidence to put some time and effort in envisioning the product details. So moving on from high-level planning, ideation, brainstorming to actually getting into the roadmap of the product, how it is going to look like. It might be worthwhile to spend time reviewing or performing market research or validate assumptions and ideas formed during the discovery session, also to shape product roadmap and crystallize solution design for the product. One might have to evaluate and choose from different technologies and platforms out there to suit their needs and build some high fidelity and functional prototypes to further validate and enhance product roadmap and requirements. Even before prototypes are built, it is important to map out detailed user journey, digital experiences. So a strong user experience team and practice comes handy at this stage, as the user experience architect and the technical architect, they can work directly with the product managers and business teams to define user personas and flows and interactions and build wireframes and mockups of the actual solution even before the first line of code is written. At TechBlocks, we have found the OutSystems platform in specific has advanced drag and drop prototyping capabilities and advanced user experience designing solutions that has helped us and our teams to significantly reduce the cost and also speed up time required for high fidelity functional prototyping. So at TechBlocks, we find our technical and user experience architects prefer to use OutSystems platform for such exercises, as it de-risks the project and provides better understanding of how the end product is going to look like. So once we have an understanding of the product, it is important, but how do we go about it? Like, what are the different stages we usually go through? A usual journey for us starts with an idea in someone's mind. We work with the team to research on the idea and take it to market. In doing so, we use several techniques such as setting up brainstorming sessions, focus user groups, competitors analysis, and even looking at companies' own market research or feedback on products and services from existing customers. So many different ways to collect data and do research to understand what is required and how it is going to make impact to the business core operation. Then usually a team of product manager, technology architect, user experience architect, business analyst, they all work together with business IT and end customers to build personas, low fidelity designs, and moving on to high fidelity designs to actual prototypes that are built in an iterative fashion and are something that can be used in the actual product, not a throwaway. In this journey, we use several different tools as per different needs and as per different organization preferences, like we use mock flows, Axure. I'm sure some of these tools you must have used as very, very popular tools out there. Sketch, we use InVision to build up prototypes and high fidelity designs. In other cases, we also perform A/B testing to validate design and ideas at early stage of product development, as we have found it to be very effective strategy to reduce costs later in the development cycles. Just to give you an example here, with Sketch, very, very popular tool for building hi-fi designs and prototypes, OutSystems has released their toolkit on Sketch. So we just use Sketch and we use OutSystems toolkit to quickly build prototype designs that adhere to OutSystems applications and standards, and it's very easy to port it back into OutSystems platform for low-code development. I think that cuts the design to development transition at least in less than half, if I'm not overstating it. Mike, do you want to touch upon that aspect?
Yeah, no, it's we're always looking for ways to compress, right? We see that if you think about low code as automation, right? It's automation. It doesn't mean that robots are creating the code, right? It means that as developers, there's a lot of stuff we do that just kind of, it's repeated patterns, right? We've got a database table, we need to access it, right? You created some data layer, you create some business layer, right? You create something in the user interface. All these layers of code just take time, and those are the things that, from a low code perspective, we can reduce that time burden significantly. And moving from design to build is one of those key areas, right? It's an opportunity for streamlining. And again, it doesn't negate the need for a partner with the knowledge of engineering best practices and how to gather requirements effectively, what to actually build in the first place. But it does make the process of actually building software significantly faster. So we're always looking for ways to reduce that time, compress the time for development.
Thank you, Mike. So once we have the design and a roadmap in place, what do we do next? As we move from product roadmap and design to actually building and delivering a project, it is important to scope out requirements to a level of details that are ready for the technical team to take and build. We have seen organizations missing this important step and directly passing on high-level requirements and designs to developers to build, and then struggling through the development cycles of sprints, wasting time in clarification and rework. By no means I'm suggesting to follow waterfall here, although that is a good methodology for many organizations. But even with agile DevOps practices, it is important to have separate BA cycles to decompose roadmap, epics, user stories into technical tasks with enough details and unambiguous details that can be used for proper acceptance criteria testing, and also can be used by developers to build and testers to test. So very, very, very crucial step here that is usually overlooked, and then it's kind of considered as agile, business is changing, needs are changing, everything can be done on the fly. But it is very important to define the technical specifications before actually someone comes and start building it, because you have already passed the prototyping stage. It is okay to play around and test when you're in a prototyping or iterations, but when you're actually building a large-scale product with a serious impact on digital operations, we cannot miss this step. It is equally important to define release cycles, for example, and plan business demos while setting expectations for and from each team member in the demo. In some cases, it might be a good idea to do application walkthrough sessions and maybe follow train-the-trainer approach within your organization so that there is enough understanding of the product that is being built and it can be tested properly within the organization before it is released. we follow different practices in DevOps cycle, right from making it more and more easier to manage the requirements, more and more easier to auto-deploy the products, like in Microsoft, like Octopus, or using Jenkins and tools like that, or containerization of the application, or using the latest technologies with microservices or other stuff to make it easier to build applications. So all those technology decisions about detailed solution architecture, I'm not talking about the product roadmap architecture, I'm talking about a detailed solution architecture and implementation plan, has to be built, and there has to be a way to continuously monitor, track, validate how these things are being built and deployed. So kind of it brings us to how then to run a product lifecycle properly. A good product development management or a lifecycle, in my opinion, should address these 6 key points, or the components or the blocks, depends what you want to call them, starting from having a very solid product roadmap in place that defines what is being built, why it is being built, who is going to use it, how they're going to use it, when is it going to be available, when is it going to go in production, what features goes first, second, third. A detailed release plan is very, very important. But at the same time, the expectation from business these days is to be agile and changing often and sometimes every day. And how do you manage that? How do you keep track of what was requested when and what is changed when, and how does that impact the development cycle and the product in overall? So having a strong requirements management practice in place, and we don't have to overcomplicate it, but at least having a proper mapping of meetings, brainstorming sessions, mapped it back to your roadmap, map it back to your epics, to user stories, and to the technical tasks is crucial. So when a developer is building something, usually they come up with option A and option B, and they come up with questions like, hey, why am I building it like this and not that? And can I do this versus that? A good product manager should be able to trace it back to the conversation with the business or the end user saying, hey, this is how we discuss, and this is the reason for building it in this way. Kind of builds a strong confidence in your team also in the requirements, and it's easier to manage. So we have talked about agile software delivery. It's not a new thing. Like there's a lot of tools that are out there that are being used these days. And to deliver a DevOps, or to deliver a product successfully using DevOps practices, we internally at TechBlocks, we have used many of the tools, starting from Jira, Confluence, or even Visual Studio or SharePoint Online to capture requirements, build requirements. In some cases, Excel file, but the thing is that the process of traceability has to be planned properly. From there, we have used tools to make sure that whatever developers are building is released every night. There are automation scripts that are run. There is a unit test case that runs on the code to make sure that nothing breaks every night. So releasing smaller chunks of code every night or every other day rather than waiting for a release cycle to come to release it. But at the same time, release cycle is also equally important because that is something that you're releasing to a different environment altogether. So what goes in what release cycle, and planning those release cycles and mapping it back to the builds using auto deployment tools like Jenkins, and for provisioning share for Docker are equally important. So setting up a good technical team and a practice around DevOps helps you not only release your product, but it also helps you manage it on a continuous basis. Now, once a product is launched, definitely quality insurance is important and change management is important too. But at the same time, like we discussed earlier, product is not a project, right? It doesn't end there. It continuously evolves. Some of the challenges that we have seen with products is like, it's a great product, it's launched, everyone is happy. 1 year down the line, it has gone through so many changes that nobody knows what happened to the product. Right? Products evolve, changes happen, but it's difficult to follow up on the documentation on what happens. Or other challenges that we have seen is that it was a great team, they built a great product, everyone is very happy. 1 year down the line, the team is dismantled, people have moved on, now there is no knowledge about the product. And now business wants to go with phase 2 or next release, and there is a challenge of knowledge retention or knowledge management within the organization. So not only it is important to build the right product the right way, it is also very important to maintain knowledge about that product within the organization, having proper skills to support that. So how do we do that using knowledge management tools or using requirements management, for example, documenting what is being changed when what it goes in release is equally important. Now, on the right, there's a lot of tools that are being used here. I do not want to, say that every tool is required, but definitely different tools have different purposes. One advantage that comes with low-code platforms like OutSystems is they streamline the deployment process a lot. At the same time, they have the capabilities to integrate with these tools. So Mike, if you don't mind taking a moment to help us understand how does that work with OutSystems?
Yeah, so with OutSystems, a lot of this, you don't necessarily need all of these different pieces of the puzzle, right? That's part of the value of low code, is it replaces perhaps a complicated stack, right? Or portions of your stack, particularly focused around development, of course. But we also know that many organizations, have established perhaps build pipeline tooling in-house, right, that we need to fit with. So there's also an openness to the OutSystems platform that allows OutSystems to be integrated into a build pipeline, right, so that the generated services can be deployed to a container infrastructure, for example. So we're kind of, again, constantly balancing where we can provide automation, where can we abstract, what can we replace. And as I jump into more detail on OutSystems in a few slides time, right, I'll kind of step through all of the things you can do with the platform. But in some situations, it's appropriate to use other tools and integrate as a strategy as well. And it's always a balancing act. And for different organizations, right, they may have different needs.
Okay. So I think it's what we are trying to say here is that it is important to fail faster if you have to fail faster, and it is also important to release MVP. I was in one of the conferences and there was a beautiful example about MVP there. It is important to release a product, but then that product is usable. When a company is building a car, MVP does not mean that you release tires first, steering wheel second, car body third, because that is not usable. A car is usable product, right? So how do you plan for that? How do you do an MVP with initial release? And then how do you have an enhancement plan based on that is kind of equally important. And that is something that we kind of help organizations with product engineering there. The last and the most important piece, in my opinion, is how to tie it back to KPIs, how to define SLAs, how to capture analytics, how to make sure that the application is built in a way that it has provision to capture the feedback of customers and drive user satisfaction levels up, or also is capturing analytics and data in a fashion that can help businesses drive business intelligence out of it. Because at the end of the day, data is important to understand and even monetize the value of, even monetize the data that is coming out of the application. There has to be a plan around that. How do you build dashboards and reports around it? And how do you use that data to validate or verify that your ROI projections are going or have been met? At the same time, how do you use all of this data to optimize and build recommendations around and improve your product? What we have done at TechBlocks is we have used some of the tools out there, for mobile applications, we have used like Crashlytics. We have used tools like Splunk for log monitoring. And we have used a bunch of other tools like Flurry for capturing application analytics and how users use it, what devices they use from. Also, we have used external tools like Net Promoter Score to validate if it's a large-scale enterprise-wide transformation of how things shaped or affected the Net Promoter Score for the organization. So there are many tools and that can be used, or analytics that can be used within the organization. But OutSystems platform in itself comes up with some great analytics I would say, options and engines to capture the information. So Mike, at this stage, if you can talk a little bit more about how OutSystems platform and applications built in that platform can be used for analytics capturing and improving customer satisfaction.
Yeah, so we've been talking a bit about speed, right? Low-code technology enables you to develop faster by providing a lot of automation and visual ways to assemble applications. Great technical partners, again, add speed, right, and knowledge to be able to build new solutions. But moving quickly, you need to move quickly in the right direction. And we identified an opportunity here from a product perspective, and we released OutSystems Insights last year. And basically, this is a way of knowing whether you're heading in the right direction. If you want to hit the next slide, Manish. And we actually use this within our own, as we build our own applications. We eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne. I think it's a nicer phrase. So this is an example of one of our own internal applications that we're using Insights to look at. So each release, we get stats on customer satisfaction. We have probes built in as part of OutSystems Insights into apps to understand CSAT scores, and we can tie those to releases and see whether we're trending in the right direction. We can capture feedback at various stages. We can look at adoption statistics as well and understand, are the number of users that we estimated, are we hitting that number right? Are we hitting the target number of users, or is there some adoption challenge with the software we've actually built? Because again, the challenge with moving very, very quickly is knowing whether you're moving in the right direction. So this is a way of surfacing that information to help with the decisioning process as you think about, okay, well, we've got a new set of features to get out, right, in the next iteration, right? What should those be? And you can make better decisions based on the availability of this kind of data. So I've got, I think, a few slides here now, just kind of give you a bit more of a sense of what it's like actually working with OutSystems. So I'll get through these in the next 5 minutes or so. So first of all, there is a development environment. So as a developer, you're using an IDE. In our case, there are 4 different dimensions. As I talked about, kind of the differences between low-code platforms, we are full stack, which means whether you're working on data models, whether you're mapping out business logic, whether you're creating process flows, or whether you're creating the front end, it's all done in the same visual tool set, right? And you are assembling, configuring, right? That's the process rather than writing code. Now, we are a low-code platform. That means that if you need to do something very advanced, for example, that the platform doesn't support out of the box, you can jump into code. You can add code snippets here and there as a way to make sure that you don't hit any walls. And that's one of the big differences with OutSystems. Next slide, please. And then, of course, in terms of the user experience, I mentioned kind of this notion of building blocks. It's almost like Legos, right? We have a lot of pre-built blocks, particularly around the user experience. So depending on the type of platform you're targeting, right, there are libraries of components available to pull into your development environment to create applications with. These are all designed to be highly responsive, right? Multi-form factor. They have accessibility built in out of the box. For organizations that are required to build accessible applications. The animation is super smooth. So you get basically a great user experience. Now, of course, you need to understand the process of building the right types of interfaces. We give screens as starting points, but again, this is where partners come in with their expertise, helping adhere to certain UX best practices. But you have all of the components ready, examples of screens to hand, to accelerate the process as well. But it doesn't substitute, the UX science that goes into building applications. Next slide, please. And it's important to be able to control, and this is a strength of OutSystems, the look and feel down to the pixel, right? When you're building new interfaces, particularly if these are for customers. And customers are certainly a common target for applications built with OutSystems. We have a lot of capabilities built into the platform to tweak CSS, configure CSS to get the exact look and feel you want. We also have a theme customizer that will intelligently analyze logos and come up with color palettes. So we've, again, provided lots of ways to automate the process of coming up with a good looking user interface. And those changes get propagated across all of the application screens seamlessly, right? Because of the way that we've kind of architected our product. So making it very accessible for people to build good looking user interfaces quickly. Next slide, please. I mentioned data a little bit earlier. One of the most common use cases we see for integration is basically building layers on top of Salesforce and SAP, right? The two systems, creating a common layer above those. So within OutSystems, you can choose from different flavors of databases and model there visually to create these kind of interim repositories, or just build applications from scratch, right? If there's no need to integrate, which is fairly unlikely with most applications, but there's almost always a need for these interim data models, and we've made that all visual with accelerators. So for example, if you drag a table into the user interface panel, it automatically creates a master detail relationship between screens. It creates a first version of that screen for you. Stars fly out from the interface. It's very exciting. Just a huge time saver, because a lot of what we're building at the end of the day is CRUD, right? It's create, read, update, delete type interfaces for applications. There's the secret sauce that goes into the application as well, but a lot of it's building out the maintenance screens, and that is reduced to a bare fraction of the time it would otherwise take. Always my least favorite task as a developer, the maintenance screens. Next slide, please. And of course, no system really lives alone, right? It's all about integration. So we make it very easy to consume REST services, to integrate with SOAP, and to expose APIs as well, right? A lot of organizations are realizing that they have a lot of valuable data and they want to expose that through new APIs. So we make it very easy to integrate and expose your own REST-based APIs to potentially identify new revenue streams. Next slide, please. And then DevOps has been built into our platform really before the term was even coined in the industry. So we, from the get-go, we knew it was very important to make it very easy to build and deploy software. So literally with a single click, that's what it takes to deploy an application you've built visually using OutSystems. We have an engine called True Change that goes through the application. It looks for any challenges. So you can't deploy a broken build, right? You will not be allowed to. You have to go and fix any error before you're allowed to actually press the green button and deploy the application. And moving between environments, we do a full analysis of your entire portfolio of applications. So if you have dependencies or a certain version of a component is not the right version, we highlight all of that. We flag those dependencies as well, which is a big deal in large portfolios of applications. We have that visibility, right? Because this is a model-driven approach. We know that there will be a conflict if you push a particular module, a particular application due to a dependency that it has. So that's a huge time saver when it comes to building and deploying applications across different environments. Next slide, please. And then we make all of this available either as a platform, as a service. We have a few different deployment models, right, when you think about who would be actually using this. So you can use our cloud offering and you get our platform, right? You get it delivered over the cloud. We also know that for some organizations, they need the data in-house. They need to have systems in-house. So customer managed infrastructure is also supported. So this can be deployed in your own data centers. We have templates on the Azure marketplace, right? So there are a number of different deployment options when it comes to where does this platform actually reside. But regardless of the approach you take, you still get all of these benefits. You get the DevOps capabilities. And these can also be triggered, right? The DevOps capabilities can be triggered from Jenkins, for example, as part of your current build chain, so that you can integrate in existing technologies that you have in-house today. If you want to find out more, definitely check out our website. We just did a video series just last week, actually, with five different aspects of the platform, live demos in under 29 or under 30 minutes. I think we build them as 29-minute demos. Just a small time investment for you to see the actual technology in action from a number of different angles. Thanks, Manish.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so with that said, we covered about product engineering and low-code platform, and now it helps to, or how it increases the chances of successful digital transformation. With that, Aisha, if you can talk about next steps from here, please.
Absolutely. So we appreciate everyone who attended the webinar. I think there's so much to do when it comes to digital transformation and all these initiatives that you guys are working on a daily basis. So there's a couple of different options for for you guys to engage with us. We offer a pre-assessment, which is in 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 sessions, up to 4 hours. No cost to you. We do do due diligence and readiness assessment. We can talk about what are some of the use cases for your specific environment for low code. If you actually want to get hands-on experience with the platform, TechBlocks is co-sponsoring the Jumpstart that OutSystems is hosting in Toronto on March 20th. We can discuss more, technical challenges, your development challenges. So it might be good for you guys to come out. The link for all this information will be sent to you after the webinar. And we're also going to be sponsoring, both OutSystems and TechBlocks is sponsoring the CIO Toronto conference on March 21st. And, it'll be a good chance if you want to meet both our teams to come out and see us there and hear from other thought leaders and experts. So we appreciate, everyone coming in. And right now we have about 7 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions, please type those out, and I'll read them out, and Manish and Mike can go ahead and answer.
Right. I mean, I have a question for you, Manish, actually, while we're waiting on questions. Just curious to understand kind of your journey, how you discovered low code. I think one of the challenges with organizations that build software is, obviously there's the notion that if you build it really, really fast, right, then you miss out on a commercial opportunity, right, to kind of do things longer for customers. And obviously I think that tide has shifted significantly. But how did TechBlocks kind of discover low code technology? What was the deciding factor to kind of embrace OutSystems, for example?
Sure, I will start, and Aisha, feel free to jump in. So for us, we work with a lot of large enterprises, and what we have seen is a shift in the way applications are built. 5 years and 10 years down the line, it was mostly IT building the application, taking requirements from business. But now it is much more agile, and there's a lot of involvement from business that drives the applications. What that means is that it has to be built faster, it has to adapt to changing needs, it has to be launched quicker, and it has to be easy, because many times there's a business that is driving the product. At the same time, there's so many technologies out there, and there have always been a challenge of integrating with technologies, finding the right skill sets and capabilities, like maintaining knowledge and retention within the organization. So as system integrators, like we say in system integrators in the modern world, we are always looking for applications or ways that can help us achieve faster go-to-market for our customers in enterprises, or especially for entrepreneurs also, right? And in order to do so, we were exploring different platforms, and we happened to come across OutSystems. We put in a team of architects, and we put in a team of developers to start playing around it with the platform. We looked at it for 3 months, and we were highly convinced that it is a great platform to use. And since then, we have shown it, and we have worked with our customers, and they have loved it too.
Great. No,
Mike,
yeah.
Sorry. No, I think we do have a question. There's one of our users, attendees is asking, I think the service is great, but I can't justify the monthly price for a small company like mine. Any plans to create more affordable service, which may be with maybe smaller options?
Yes. So you can engage with our sales team. Not every option is listed on our price list on the website. So engage with our sales team, and we'll see what we can do to help. Depending on your model, it's probably the best recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Stan, for that question. And I think to add, and I think unless we have any other questions, I'll sort of give final thoughts here. I think the culture of agility is very important, and I think that is sort of the basis of TechBlocks as an organization in terms of the building that we do and the way that our organization is set up. And we found that to be existent in OutSystems as well, not just from the platform, but organizationally. We find that there is a very strong fit between our two organizations, and I think once, hopefully we get a chance to work with, some of the attendees here on a few projects, but hopefully you can experience that agility live. And, we appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day to join us. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me,
Thank
Aisha.
you. Yeah. Thank you, Mike, Aisha. Bye now.
Thanks.